Hello traders, welcome to today's Bitcoin and cryptocurrency update. Now, I hope you all had a really good weekend. I hope for your own sake and sanity that you've maybe just stepped back and taken a step away from the charts, focused on doing something you like to do outside of trading. Because realistically, there hasn't been much going on. This has been a very, very weak display and a very weak Bitcoin weak price action from Bitcoin across the whole weekend, and we're seeing that continue now into Monday. However, I want to do an update today because we have hit into another important area of support. We did it the other day. We had a very poor reaction from it, but it is something to be aware of, especially due to the similarities that we have with the range from back in last summer. Now, we have very, very different market conditions right now. Okay, back last summer, the stock market was still looking pretty good. Everyone was still fairly happy that, okay, things were recovering. We weren't going into all of this recession talk and everything like that. But the similarities in the structure of the chart are fairly similar. So I want to do a little bit, just briefly touch on that within this video, and also to give a couple of positives and then a couple of maybe less positive pieces of information that just could help you to form a bias of what we're looking for at the moment. So right now, okay, it is clearly risk off. For myself, I was saying this last week, I did take a trade off of this 35,600 MPOC. Very weak bounce, couldn't even get into the previous day point of control. Very, very poor from Bitcoin itself on the bounce that it had here. It was able to take profit, but ultimately stopped out. And what I was saying within the Discord and to the crew and everything is, if we do lose this point of control, I'm not looking at this as a swing low, because there's always the possibility that we could just SFP and reverse up. I want to get out of this position if we start to grind below this point of control. And that's what we've seen. And we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 down days now where we've come into this next region of support. Still not a good reaction. Okay, not a good reaction at all. And we're not seeing any volume in this. We're not seeing any intent to buy, apart from on one exchange. And we're not really seeing, when you want to see a low put in, you've got to wait for some volume. So we're still waiting for that. That could come in, and there are some important areas that we could look for basically a recovery off of this. But at the moment, still looking very weak. I'm not jumping into any major positions on this, and mainly just kind of monitoring things as we go along here. So I know I've spoken a little bit too much about just the overall picture, but basically, okay, we've hit this MPOC. This is the last one that we've got within this range here. Now we do have another below, and this was from the day that we broke out of the previous consolidation. And look at this. I'm just have a very simple volume chart on here. I know this isn't the clearest to see, but look at the kind of structure that we have here, okay, where price formed this range, took out the highs, and then you just have this slow grind down, filling in all the inefficiencies on the chart. But on this occasion, of course, last summer, we didn't end up taking that low. We reversed beforehand, put in this point of control here at 32,350, around that region. I have it on my chart that I'll show you in a bit. But then we just had that big move up. Now we have, obviously, when we had that massive dump during the beginning of this year, we came through and we filled most of those, but there is still this one little bit lower. And for the range that we're currently in, we have now filled basically everything. So the other day we'd filled all the single prints. There were no single prints left on the chart. There were no fair value gaps left on the chart. There was nothing like that, no inefficiencies yet. But we've tested these volume areas, so key volume areas where there is significant trading interest. So there are places in which price could reverse, but we do have to be aware there is a further one below. And then if we start to drop below that, then we're basically going back to previous market cycle kind of theory. Basically, this would be going back into 2020 price action and very early 2021, which is a completely different market cycle to what we're in at the moment. So there's one more MPOC below, 32,350. I think, and there is that one to be aware of. But as for the range that we're in at the moment, this here is a key level, and I would be looking for it as being a potential one of those, like we did last summer, come down, don't take out the lows, just reverse a little bit early, and maybe there is a bit of strength that comes into the market. But Very different market conditions. Stock market on this occasion, bearish, wasn't last summer. Sentiment on this occasion, very bad. Everything that's going on in the world. People aren't really risk on right now, so do bear that in mind. Anyway, enough on that chart. I'm just going to go over onto this. And again, you can see here, this is the MPOC that we're at. And very similar to what we had the other day. I've got this one just as a little star to show this has been traded through already. Okay, so we did trade through that naked point of control there at 35,600, and now we are here at this naked point of control at 33,550 from, again, the last one in the range. And zoom in on this, and again, it is looking weak so far, but even at the moment, so I'm here in Dubai, 3 hours ahead of even Europe at the moment. So we've not had the EU markets open yet, and we clearly have not had the US markets open yet. So we're not really getting the volume that we would expect to see if this was traded, say, during a New York session or even during the kind of the European session. It's a very low volume drop that we've had. There are some divergences building. I'm going to remove this. There are some divergences building, but again, it's not anything that I would really pay too much attention to. 4 hour bullish divergence, but it's not a lot. So at the moment, still looking very much just like, yeah, you got to see some volume coming in on this. But anyway, that is the the point of control that we're at. The other interesting thing we have today, okay, if we were to see a little bit of momentum come back into the market, and we did have a little attempt at this earlier, is that 80% setup, okay? So if we do just throw on our daily levels here, and we look at our daily open, we did open outside of previous day value area. So obviously yesterday we just were within this little range, having dropped below that POC and just grinding down, nothing really tradable to be looking at on here, which is why I said earlier, I hope you just did something nice this weekend instead of looking at the charts, because if you're trying to trade this price action on a weekend, yeah, maybe not the best use of your time. However, okay, there were some trades to be had possibly within this region. But yeah, we did have that daily open outside. There were a couple of closes above within value area, but ultimately no follow through on this, and then we've rolled over and come into this MPOC down here a little bit lower. So there is, if we do start to get a bit of support around this area, and maybe we can start to find ourselves back above the daily open, I think this is quite a key region right now to be looking at. If we do find ourselves reclaiming the daily open, possibly on the London open or the New York open later on, then I do think it gives us a pretty strong chance of coming straight through into this 34,800 or 34,810 previous day value area high, at which point things start to look very different. Okay, so if price can maybe just chop around here, it gets a bit of momentum coming back in, I think we could see quite a sharp rise, and then what that gives us is a fairly decent change of market structure. Okay, we haven't seen anything. It's just been down, 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 down. Not even any sign that this is going to change structure since we had that big move up on last Wednesday night or whenever it was. So, and again, that was the short that we were taking at that 39,700 daily level. Another point of control, something else that we were looking at. It was a macro POC. It was a daily level. It was a very easy short to take, and still holding short for this for now on here. But we've seen this lower highs, 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 lower high, lower high, lower high. Magnet tools making this weird, but the whole way down, lower highs. And if we do get that change through, in order to get this 80% setup complete, then that would start to look a lot better, and we can actually start to look to recover some of this, because you've got a massive void up here, and at some point that is going to get filled. So it's something to be aware of. It's something that could possibly be traded if we are to get some volume coming in around here. Now, alternatively, we're in a downtrend. You've got to continue trading it as a downtrend. So we do have to look at lower support. So we do have, I don't actually have it on my chart, but it is there. Okay, the 32,350 NPOC that's from our previous range. That is something to be aware of. And then, of course, if we do start to go lower down, then we do have that 29,775 daily level. That would be a huge drop for today. But if US markets, especially if European markets open bearish, there's talk of escalated tension within the conflict that's going on. There's a lot of kind of wider economical bad stuff happening at the moment, so we could see some mass capitulation. And of course, we are looking at a stock market at the moment that's very fragile, that big tech stocks are dropping huge amounts, and it's not the best environment. So we could be seeing there is a real possibility that we could see a capitulation out of this, in which case you do have that 29,775 level down there. And of course, there is a weekly level here at 31,773. So those are levels to be monitoring at the moment. But for now, okay, we're just going to focus on what's local. We're going to focus on that little MPOC slightly lower that would take us back into last summer and basically test all of that, and then possible reversion off of those levels. So those are the levels of support that I'm really looking at the moment, and there's nothing in between that I'm particularly interested in. Alternatively, if we are to get some volume coming through, then I do think this 80% setup would be a nice one that could be traded. You can position yourselves into that early. We are in a region of support here. We have taken out some this MPOC. We've dropped a little bit lower. It gives you a decent validation. There are long positions that you could look for, and I do think that if this could play out and you do get that change of market structure, you could be looking all the way back up to that 37K level fairly quickly, and that could be the point in which we start to maybe form another range and start to look more to the upside. So some levels, some thoughts, just kind of coming back into the charts here on a Monday and giving basically just talking. So that's my thoughts so far on this. Other things that we have. So again, there's your 80% setup. Okay, it is there. I had to put that onto 100 tick the other day because of the volatility we had, but this is a little bit clearer. Okay, you can see it here. So we do have 34.80, basically reclaim daily open, and things start to look a lot better. And then you've got the point of control. You've got your, depending on what your tick size and everything is on here, then that is that. And then we're looking back up towards this 35,850. We've got another POC there. We've got that 37K POC. There's a lot of stuff in the charts, and all the data right now is above us, apart from those few levels lower, which there's huge space in between. So one other interesting thing to be talking about today, the big Bitfinex buy wall that we know for a fact got filled. So we know that this got filled. It's not a huge position. It's about 500 Bitcoin, and it has continued to basically average in a little bit lower. So you can see here on the chart, right? Let's just go to this. Two very clear, basically buy walls, a lot of bids on the books here that have been filled. So we did this the other day. We had obviously that partial fill where we saw a drop off in open interest as this got hit. So this was maybe closing short positions. This is what we were thinking it was looking likely. Then price came through it again after this got basically replenished. And then long positions were filled. We know that by the big increase that we had in open interest at that point. And if you do go onto the footprint chart, you can see that these positions were all filled at the price in which they were here. So none of these bids getting pulled. Everything was filled, and we did see that big rise in open interest. And this is a nice little example of maybe some way in which trades can be managed, because if you're looking at as a trader and you've got a big position size and you're looking at, okay, you want to get into a long position, and then you see price start to come below. This has actually been quite a nice, what's been happening with the open interest here has been quite a nice example of how you can start to manage that on the way down. Because if we do look into this region, okay, and I'll just try and clean this up a little bit. It's a bit difficult to do, but basically you can see the region that we're at, and you can see these spikes up in open interest. Okay, each time price comes down, and then it starts to cool off a little bit. But ultimately remaining relatively stable. Now, to me, this looks like maybe some kind of averaging in onto a position. So what you're basically laddering in, and you're bringing an average entry down and taking small profits on each rise. So we don't know if this is the intent. We don't know if that's what actually happened. But let's zoom in a little bit more here on the 30-minute time frame. And you can see, let me just get the pencil tool up here. You can see here, as price comes down, turn off the magnet, as price comes down into this area here, then you get that bigger rise in open interest, negative delta. We know that there is market selling into this, but it's going straight into limit buy orders. So market maker moves, wanting to get a good position, wanting to get the best position possible in order for a potential reversal from this. So big move up in open interest, and then price bounces. Okay, what happens? This open interest starts to decrease, so profit taking. So you go into a long position here, you start to take profit, and at this point you're still leaving some open. Okay, you've maybe closed about 50% of that position that started around here, and you've taken some profit up around here, and then price starts to come down again a little bit more. What happens next? Okay, price comes down further. At this point, down at these lows here. Sorry, this isn't very clear. There we go. Let's go up to a bit of a higher thing on this. And once again, okay, price gets this a little bit of a bounce, and you see declining open interest, which starts to indicate again more profit taking onto this position. Maybe this participant at the moment now has an average entry a little bit lower than it was before, maybe around this 34,600. Once again, price moves down, an increase in open interest, indicating once again that this has got filled. And if you do look on the footprint, these positions are getting filled, so none of these bids are getting pulled. Then you do have again another drop down with market selling into it, but limit buys holding price up, and once again positions filled at this level, which could maybe bring this person's average entry down a little bit lower, and we could be looking at the low 34s, the 30, probably not the 33s, but you get the idea of that. And again, we're seeing this continue down to the point in which we come all the way through to the low, the very, very low here, and now we start to see basically a plateau in this open interest. It's starting to remain relatively stable, but there is a strong possibility that this could have been some kind of averaging into a position, managing that on the way down, taking profits, and just getting an average entry from maybe something that was already open previously, bringing that average down, remaining a similar kind of position size overall. Like I say, we're looking around about 500 Bitcoin. You can see from when we did have that move up, we're up again another 100, 150 or so. So maybe 500 Bitcoin filled here, and then we're looking at an extra kind of 150 on this move down that we've had over the weekend. So just limit orders being filled, and a lot of selling at market. And that's what we've really been seeing across the board. If we do look at other exchanges, there's been lots of selling at market going on, very, very negative delta. And realistically, it's that kind of environment now where people, if they're not already fed up and have closed out of their positions, it's getting very close to that point in which most traders at the moment who were long are probably out of the market at this stage, and people are basically taking a step back and just waiting for this to resolve. So we do have open interest high-ish still at this stage. We do have to be aware of that, but it is getting to that point now where people are pretty fed up of the market. Clearly, you can see that in the data that is out there. And again, it does give maybe a little bit more confidence for anyone who is looking for a reversal that this could have done the job already, and we may not be needing that capitulation move, that final capitulation, in order to take out basically everyone, because there's not that much left in the market right now. The other things I do just want to mention very quickly before we finish up here is the SPX, the S&P 500. Okay, and what has that done? We are still, and this is the futures, still just sat here once again at this support. Now, we know the other day these lows got taken out. There was a nice little bounce here, and we basically formed this range here between 4,060 up towards around 4,300. Okay, there is this range, and So far, futures opened again last night, opened basically the same place that they closed, and whoops, phone's going off, and it's not looking great again. Once again, here it's not looking great. We are going to see, unless this starts to bounce very soon, we're going to see this gap down on the SPX, which opened. I mean, it's going to open again down at these lows, isn't it? Realistically, but looking kind of zooming out on this, things are not looking ideal for legacy markets. Again, divergence building, it's not something particularly important. It's not something like massively strong here. But you've seen occasions in the past where, okay, price comes down, it does this ABCD kind of thing. The final little region of support is basically a failed breakdown, and then you have a reverse, like it reverses back up to new all-time highs. So we could be seeing something similar to that. Of course, if we are looking at a further move to the downside, realistically, there's no support here until you come down into this 3,950 area. I do believe we have a 1-to-1 extension there. Let me just throw back on this, and we can have a look at our 1-to-1, which is coming in, yeah, so around that 3,930, 3,950 region. There is a small consolidation there that we could be aware of, but ultimately, if this does continue to fall down, we'd maybe be looking at, again, a bounce at that point, then that 4,200 region becoming resistance once again, and realistically, that previous all-time high could be the main target. That's where you really have like clear SR level, something that was really traded a lot, and there's a lot of interest in that level if we are going to see a kind of going into, at this point, at least a few quarters, at least of downtrend, a good many months of downtrend facing us in the future if this was to happen, and then the real possibility that that's recession, that's again big bear market across crypto and very bad. So we don't really want to see that, but that is a big possibility. And if you were trading this asset, that honestly, looking down here towards 3,400 is probably where you would have your target, potentially even lower. So do you got to be aware that the markets at the moment aren't the best, but it's still not. It's not a case of all hope is lost. If this does do something similar to what we've seen many times before, then we could get that big reversal back up to new all-time highs. Finally, DXY, okay, it's continuing to push. Okay, we are continuing to push on here, but what do we see as we're getting on the lower time frames on assets kind of to the downside? We are seeing this divergence starting to form here. Does it mean much? Who knows? I wouldn't necessarily be wanting to trade based off of that. But, okay, we've seen DXY, it came down, took out these lows. It then made a new, not all-time high, but kind of very significant high. And we're continuing to take that out. But I would say momentum is starting to cool off here. We're certainly not looking like that big parabolic run. It does feel like maybe this is some exhaustion. The rally off of this is just that final little move to get prices as high as it can on the DXY, and then we could be looking at a correction from this. So if we do get that, very good for markets. But again, it's an uptrend. You've got to be trading the DXY as an uptrend. You've got to be trading the SPX, and you've got to be trading tech stocks, and you've got to be trading Bitcoin as a downtrend, because that is currently what we have. I've spoken a lot. I've spoken for almost 25 minutes on this. I don't really have anything else I want to say, so I am going to wrap it up there. I hope that was useful. This is going to come out nice and early for you guys in Europe, and this is going to come out even earlier for you guys in the USA, which won't be awake for a few hours. But let's see how things go. We're going to be looking at this with a lot of interest. I have alerts. I'm not rushing into trades. I'm still holding a lot of shorts. I'm still holding a short on Bitcoin. I'm still holding that amazing short on Luna, where we have come into a region of support here. But with this like macro value area low on, this is just the Bybit chart. So okay, of course we don't have all the data on here, but it's interesting to see, and basically coming back into the top of this previous range that we did have. So we have come back through and we filled basically this big void, the majority of it here, and again it's sat at a nice like round number $60, kind of good. So for short positions, like I'm in a relatively decent area in which to be taking profit, but ultimately I'd like to see price move down a bit lower on here, around about that $52 region before I'd be getting very interested. And again, we can look at this as being the macro range. And what do we have at $52 if you're looking at more data is that big POC from, yeah, basically this macro range that we've been in if we start to forget all of the data from the previous cycle. So interesting stuff there on Luna. The only other thing I've really been trading recently has been Ape, and we have hit into, again, the important support on here. So again, Ape, I got that short, still holding that short at $27.69, still holding that short. That weekly level was a take profit for me. There was a couple of really nice trades from there. And this is the region I was looking at price coming back to. So we have come into that. And the nice thing about this is it has taken out a pretty significant low. Okay, we have taken out, I think, have we taken out that low? I did have alerts go off. It actually hasn't taken it out, so I do place my alerts slightly above so I can look at it. It hasn't taken out the low, but we have dipped into this support, and this is basically its open price. We have a daily OB there, and then of course we have all of this basically support, and then it goes on big run to the upside. So it's a region in which I could potentially be looking for longs again on Ape. It has been a very nice asset to trade recently. Still holding that short position. I have taken profit once again on this, but not jumping into anything. That is a huge move to the downside that's happened in less than a week, which is, yeah, pretty insane. So we're looking at like over 60% down from our highs. Very nice trade. I'm very, very happy with that short position that was taken. And even last week, I was very happy with all of this. There was almost we were able to front run Elon. We were able to get into a long position at these lows. We knew it was going to come up and take these highs. Got back into that short position at a second one here at $17.40. And again, just holding these shorts, holding short positions are working very well at the moment. Long positions, not so much. And I guess that brings me on to my final little point is this is why, how many times have you heard me repeat over the last few weeks on every single live stream, every time every trading room, every time people are looking at alts, you can go through stuff here. Like I've heard a lot of people talking about Atom. Come on, guys, like wait for a sign of strength. How long have people been buying altcoins for? And this is the dangerous thing. You buy into bear market and you can be going, oh, this looks like support. 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 And what you're left with is a massively overexposed, really bad position that's down. If you bought all of these dips, you're down like at least, and this is like looking at basically, you're looking at this as lower the range support here and you're continuing to buy, but you'd be down, you're down 30% or something, and you've got to get a move back up on some occasions, you've got to get like 50% moves to the upside, 100% moves to the upside, 200% moves to the upside, just to get back into break even. And this is why you don't buy into downtrends unless you see a reason to. And so many of these altcoins are not giving that reason to do so, which is why I hope like silence is a pretty strong thing. And the fact that I've not been saying there are good setups, others within the community haven't been saying there are good setups, and it's just you don't want to be getting overexposed, spending all your money when you're in clear downtrends and when you have no volume. Like, okay, you're starting to see a bit of volume coming in here on some stuff, but on a lot of assets, FTT, for example, another one that I know people have been buying heavily, ENS was actually quite a nice one. That was quite a good little trade, and you're seeing the volume coming in. But there's a lot of assets here that are just bleeding, low volume. You're not seeing any interest, and at that point, you need to see some sign of life. So, yeah, hopefully on that note, we're at half an hour. I've spoken a lot, and I have been rambling on more so than I would usually do. So I am going to wrap it up there. Be careful. Like we could see a capitulation. There's a very big possibility that could happen. Like we haven't had one. Okay, so there has been no capitulation. We have certainly not had a capitulation yet. We've certainly not seen a big move down with volume. That could happen. We're looking at a very real possibility that could happen, and it could take us very, very low. It will depend on what legacy markets do. It will depend on basically the wider picture of the whole economic climate at the moment because of everything that's going on. And even at that stage, if we do see a capitulation, I think that will be serious damage done to the chart. However, we're at support. We're still at the lows of the range. You wouldn't want to be shorting this at this stage now. The time to short was these bounces that we had into clear resistance that we had identified. And if you're holding those, happy days. If you're not, don't get yourself caught up and maybe just wait for a resolution to this. There will be better times ahead. There will be much more fun times ahead. We knew the volatility was coming. It has come. It's come in a negative way again, and this is again every time we do get a historical low volatility region, what happens? It's to the downside. It's happened basically every time. Now we were able to whip that up, get into a short position. It was very nice that we were able to get into a short position, and we were open to the idea that this could potentially lead to higher prices. We could consolidate here at this POC, the POC that was from this whole range. Okay, there was that real possibility that we could consolidate there and move to the upside. It didn't work out. So the volatility, once again, as it has done back here in January, as it did back here whenever this was, actually that was a move to the upside, but on most occasions, low volatility, all-time highs, low volatility, move to the downside. Okay, it has been a move down. Back in December, it was the same, low volatility, move to the downside, and back here, low volatility, move to the downside. So it's continuing on with that trend. That doesn't mean that we can't reverse, because volatility means both directions. You can't just have bleeding out of price. You can't just be going down, 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 because that will not be volatile. That's no movement. Okay, so if we are looking at increasing volatility for this to start to curve back up, we could be looking at something really crazy like this and faster price action, more to trade. But ultimately, you've got to be trading it as a downtrend. You've got to be trading it as weakness. How many times have I said I'm going to stop? I am going to stop. That is everything I wanted to say. So thank you very much for watching. I know that was a lot of information. I hope it was useful. And I will see you all very soon. Cheers. Bye.